Hello and welcome to season 5, episode 15 of Dualistic Unity. I am very excited to see where this conversation is going to go because I have no fucking idea where it's going to go. And that's the most exciting thing about life because it's always going to go how it's going to go. And your idea of how it may go is kind of irrelevant. And your concern of how it may go is kind of irrelevant because it's still just going to go how it goes. And you don't know where that's going to go then. And so getting overly worked up about certain things coming up is just your own desire to be certain of how something's going to turn out and where it's going to lead.
And on that note, as I was mentioning before we started recording this episode, I am delightfully scruffy today. One thing I have to admit is I really enjoy just fucking scruffing it up from time to time. If you're not watching this on the video version of this episode, I just want you to know I haven't shaved since before I went camping over the weekend. And so I've got almost a full week of growth right now. And I fucking love it. I am resisting the urge to shave this for the episode today. And so I did not. And the reason I did not is frankly because I don't fucking need to. I really don't. It's ridiculous that people actually have to think about these things in a work environment at all. I just want to say this because at the moment, we have a guest who is also on our sales team and a member of our community. Today's guest is Jackie. Everybody who has been in the community knows Jackie. Jackie, we're stoked to have you here today. I just want you to know, knowing that you work with us, we don't give a fuck what you're wearing or how you dress or what you do with your hair. If you want to, grow a beard, by all means, go nuts, because it really is just about living your life. That's what dualistic unity really is. It's just me living my fucking life. Andrew just living his life. People coming on the show and just living their lives. You are just living your life. And I would like to say that I have been lucky enough to actually meet you in person at a recent retreat, and I got to actually see you living your life in good company, rocking the karaoke, having a great time. I just want to say thank you for being our guest today. It really is nice to have you here, and I'm going to shut up and pass it to you and see where you'd like to take this.
All right, absolutely. Yeah, I'm super stoked to be here. As you mentioned, I've been in the community for a long time. Like, as soon as I found the podcast, I just so deeply resonated with the fact that you guys just actually don't give a fuck. Like a lot of people put on a front like they're not giving a fuck, but they do certain things to make it look like they don't give a fuck. But I don't know, you guys just really wear it on your sleeve like I haven't really seen anybody else do. And I've really caught that bug as well. And it's just really fun to let yourself be what the fuck you are. I mean, there really is no better way to be. There's nothing that you need to be to make yourself valuable. I mean, all of that shit is just arbitrary thought. You are what you are and where you are right now. Who are you to say that that's wrong? Like, who are you to say that you should be something else or something better?
Exactly.
You don't know.
Don't know. And I want to bring this up quickly before I pass it to Andrew. You have been creating content very much about that specific point. You don't know. Fuck it. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Anybody here who hasn't checked out Jackie's content on TikTok, we will put the link in the description of the video and the episode afterwards. Do check it out because it very much is just that grounded message of, I don't know. You don't know. Why are we getting so worked up about it? Just live.
Yeah. And that ability to realize that like the depth of how little you know, like about, and for me, it was always something in the future. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. When I first started to realize like, oh yeah, maybe I don't actually know. Maybe all of those hypotheticals that are running through my head constantly, maybe none of them will turn out. And maybe my opinion of how they're going to turn out isn't guaranteed either. But the reality is that you also don't even know what's going on right now. And I think that's where a lot of our opinions stem from is feeling like, okay, yeah, I don't know what's to come, but I at least know what's happening right now because there's this thing and I'm this idea and I have this opinion of that, this opinion of that, this opinion of that, this opinion of that. And there's so much false certainty like here and now that I think for a while, at least for me, I didn't really focus on because it's like the closer you get to the certainty you have, false certainty you have about like the here and now, the less comfortable it gets because then eventually you start questioning yourself. And the way it played out, at least in my experience was like questioning everything going on, like outside of me, and anything going on outside of here and now. But more recently, it's been, I don't know what's happening right now. Like all of these feelings that I'm feeling, I don't know what they are. I keep calling them certain things and I have a story about them and blah, 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 blah. But if I actually sit in it and look at it, like, I don't know what the fuck it is. It's just a feeling. And it's like all the shit comes from calling it something, being sure that it means this, being concerned. And then it's like all of these necessary stories have to be utilized to reinforce that I know that this is what I think it is. And there are all of these reasons because of this that you don't actually know. And so that uncertainty here and now, I think, is what really starts shaking things up.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, like in any given moment, I'm settling on the fact that I'm looking at a computer talking to Andrew and Ray, but it's all just conceptual mumbo jumbo. In reality, I'm just here. The only thing that's solid is my awareness. Like, all right, I'm here. Everything else is sort of up in the air, but I feel like it took me a really long time to recognize this to the extent that I do, and really like embody it as well, and like really put it into practice. Because yeah, it really, at least when I first entered the conversation, it was dealing with conceptual, like high-minded stuff, but I wasn't looking at my day-to-day experience. I still almost unknowingly was relying on a lot of assumptions about myself and about the world. And it really just is, you have to have some sort of gap between thought and you to be able to recognize that like your thoughts aren't the truth. I think up until a certain point in my life, you're just your thoughts are constant, and that's how you find security and stability in the world, is building a conceptual idea of yourself and everyone else. And I think that is necessary, especially when we're younger and we're just trying to like build something, figure it out a little bit. But then in my experience, at least, in order to recognize that what I think is never the truth, and sort of like gain not control over my mind, but basically the ability to just let my thoughts and emotions sort of pass without creating a judgment or clinging onto them, I had to experience a gap between thought and observation. And so that can happen in a lot of different ways. That could be from a psychedelic experience, that could be just you get so deep in your shit that you have a realization, like Ray's situation. For me, also a big part of that was yoga and meditation, just being able to observe your thoughts and emotions from a point of non-judgment and uncertainty. Like, it just doesn't make sense to take yourself or your thoughts or your emotions super seriously anymore when you realize that's not the end all be all. You really don't know. Like, any sort of degree of certainty you're settling upon is false certainty. And that can make you feel better, but long term, will it make you feel better? Probably not, because my thoughts about myself and the world really kept me in the same place for most of my life. And yeah, like tying that into the content I'm creating recently, like I've had the drive to make videos. Like, I was on Vine in like 8th grade making stuff. I've always had that inclination. Like, I wanted to start a YouTube channel for a long time. I've like filmed videos, and then in the process of editing them, all of the thoughts about myself and whether I had something of value to say, if I was interesting, if I was pretty enough, all of this stuff came up. And now it's just like, I don't let that get in my way anymore. Like, all of that is still there. I go through all of that insecurity and expectation of myself, but just being able to recognize, like, oh, I don't really know that for sure. It can be uncomfortable, but just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't do it. Actually, like, I found that facing my discomfort has been the biggest catalyst for growth for me. So that's really why I'm here today. That's why I started creating content more. That's why I went to the retreat. I'm just trying to push myself out of my comfort zone, because my brain is coming up with a million reasons why I can't do something, but I'm the master of my brain. Like, me observing my thoughts and my emotions is the master, like the master slave thing. Like, I'm not going to let my mind run my shit anymore. So yeah, I'm just really stepping into that, and it has become such a source of energy for me just to recognize, like, oh, I don't know now what's possible. Like, it's so exciting to think about my future now, because the possibilities are literally endless, and the only one standing in my way is me.
I love that. And you are going for your yoga certification, correct? So I love the fact that, and I know Andrew and I have kind of crapped on meditation and whatnot in the past. And it's not that we've crapped on it so much as deliberately said, like, beware, it's not the golden goose. It's not the thing that you think you're looking for, but it is a hell of a practice when you are already the thing you're looking for. You know, yoga, the same thing. Like, as you're learning to stretch, and especially if you're a bit older, for example, and you've got a lot of old knots, all this old stress, all this old tension, all these old habitual ways of moving, right? Going through yoga, you're dealing with all of your fears and all of your doubts. I can't heal, I can't get better, I'm not limber enough, I'm not young enough, I'm not any of those things. It's very much the same thing. But isn't it funny, because you just keep doing it, you keep doing it, you breathe, and you keep going through the process. But if you were to look at any other process that's longer than, say, just a yoga session, say something that takes up years of your life, it's still the same process of just relaxing into it, of watching all of those thoughts go by as you learn a new skill, as you learn to do something new, just by going through it and breathing. And so it's so very interesting. I have to ask, because we talk about this conversation and the recognition that it really is just about you. Have you found that's amplified your enjoyment of yoga? Have you found that it's changed even how you explain yoga to other people?
This is a great question. Yes, in short. So yeah, I think I went into yoga pretty much just like a lot of people do. Like, there's an idea of yoga practice being all serene, and like, yeah, a lot of people do put pressure on themselves to like be flexible. Like, they need to be flexible in order to do yoga, and like all of these prerequisites. And there's a belief that you can be good at yoga. But the more that I've really seeped myself in the practice, it became less of a conceptual idea and more of just like an embodied feeling. Although I do think things like yoga and meditation and the conceptual framework around it's like the training wheels on a bike. I think you've mentioned that before. Like, it's a helpful tool, but not, you don't have to do yoga to embody these principles. For me, it was just a good way to practice it and really understand what that feels like. And yeah, for me, the biggest priorities of yoga, or like the mentality that I think is the most beneficial and I think is the key takeaway of the whole practice, is just non-judgment and non-attachment. So when you're in a yoga class, they will tell you, like, all right, anything that comes up, just observe it, let it go, bring your attention back to your breath, where you are. And for me, that was a really healing practice, because I used to get caught up in my mind and in my thoughts and chasing them down and like trying to combat the negative thoughts and turn them into positive thoughts or whatever. But the practice really allows you to just allow them to be and allow yourself to be and experience the benefits that just bringing your attention back to the present, to your breath, to yourself with an attitude of non-judgment really can be. And that really has transformed my life. But now it's like there's a lot of things in yoga, and I'll get into this in the yoga teacher training, I'm sure, and I'm sure I'll be butting up with that as well, because there are still a lot of concepts and there's a big, I think, misunderstanding about the yoga practice, that you're doing all of these things for an end result of enlightenment. And so you're like practicing non-attachment, but you're attached to an end goal, which started to make a lot less sense to me, as I've gotten more into the practice. I mean, I've been practicing pretty consistently for 3 years, and just the idea that you're getting somewhere really seemed contradictory to me about what the yoga practice was about. Like, isn't it just about being with yourself, being okay with where you are, recognizing that what you're thinking isn't necessarily true, or that you have the power to let it go and, change your frame of mind? So yeah, for me, going into this training, I'm just trying to keep it light on the conceptual, or try and see like the nugget of truth that's behind it. But I do think there's a large part of the industry right now in terms of yoga and meditation that is still really dealing in the conceptual and trying to get somewhere. When in reality, the true benefit of those practices is just practicing being yourself, practicing being okay where you are, and marrying that, the effort and ease. They call it sukha is ease and sthita is effort. And marrying those two together, I found, is something that I can practice in every situation in my life. In my yoga practice, yeah, I'm working hard, but I'm not straining, I'm not stressing, I'm not forcing myself into shapes that my body isn't built or is not ready for, like it's about finding that balance. And you can find that in everything. Like right now, I'm putting the effort in to keep saying words and to think about what I'm saying. But I'm relaxed. I'm sitting back. I know anything that I'm thinking doesn't mean anything about me. No matter how this goes, it doesn't mean anything about me. Like, I'm just here experiencing. And yeah, that has been the biggest takeaway, the biggest nugget of truth for me. And it's really just an embodied practice that I've fallen into, and it's expanded into everything in my life.
Beautifully said. Yeah, because when there isn't that judgment as you go, like you can put yourself into almost any situation and there'll be an ease to it, like internally. And it's almost like the physical effort or emotional effort or whatever it is, and then combined with just a curiosity about what's happening, like a willingness to do it for the sake of doing it, is really what all this shit comes down to, doing stuff for the sake of doing it. And so anything, be it yoga, meditation, anything that gives you a spot to even just recognize how much shit is going on, how much judgment, how much whatever, is a beautiful time. But that is available anywhere, anytime. And so it is that, to your point, that attachment to it being the thing that's going to like lead me to Valhalla or the promised land or whatever. Like, this doing yoga is getting me to enlightenment. Meditation is getting me to enlightenment. The whole time you're not doing it for the sake of doing it. And so, and that's so it really is anything that can get us caught in that sort of thing, or has the opportunity to create a self-judgment about, like, oh, am I getting better at yoga? Am I getting better at meditating? As if there's this endpoint that it's all gonna like poof, it's just gonna be enlightenment forever for the rest. But when you do start to realize that you can just do things for the sake of doing things, then things like yoga, meditation, it makes sense why they're done, because it's like, I can do anything. I'll sit here and hang out for a bit, but as long as it has that desire to get you somewhere, it's not even going to be like remotely a little bit that, like, it's still the same sort of thing, no differently than getting promotions at work or better grades in school. Like, anything can be equally used as that. And so in meditation or yoga, I did more meditation. Like, it gave me the space to realize that, oh, those thoughts may not be true. But then I kept doing it and kept kind of doing it with the at least a little bit of undertone that got less and less and less as I went, an undertone of getting somewhere, of making progress, of having more gaps between my thoughts, or like measuring that space. And then it got less and less about getting anywhere, to the point where I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to do this every day, every single morning. Because I straight up did it for like 3 years, every single morning, like 10, 15, 20 minutes. I would do that. And then the less it was about me getting somewhere, the less need I had for it. And I'll still do it from time to time, but it has a totally different twist on it. And it's just incredible how basically anything we do can be used to try and get us somewhere. And as long as it is, it's not really that much different than anything else we would utilize in, general society.
Well, it's interesting because I want to circle back to what you were saying about effort and ease, because I think that's very much the key. The balance is in that. And it's like, okay, so we're talking about participation, but where does participation all of a sudden become a grind? Where does participation all of a sudden become more effort than it has to be? Right. And that's it. It's in the mind. It's in our thoughts about ourselves. That is the extra effort that's unnecessary. That's where the ease can come in. It's like, still participate, but make it easy on yourself. Stop judging yourself. Stop putting so much weight on what you're doing. It's such an interesting balance because it carries over into everything. Because the most that you can do is what you can do. We don't get that. Our brain does not understand that. It's like we come up to a moment where we're supposed to be practicing something, we're learning something, we're supposed to be getting better at something, and our brain's like, yeah, and if you were this ideal version of yourself from the past, you'd be this by now. It's like, oh shit, why am I not on that timeline? And all of a sudden you're beating yourself up for being something that you couldn't possibly be. You can't be anything other than what you are right now. And that is enough, because that's what you've learned. That's what you know. All you can do is what you know. Carry on. But this idea that you can be more, it just adds so much weight. And so I love that, the balance of effort and ease, because it really is just participation without the judgment. It's all it is. So everything, and I know a yoga practitioner who would say, everything is yoga. I've also met Kung Fu teachers that would say everything is Kung Fu, right? Because at their heart, or everything is meditation, because at their heart, they are just the practice of living. When you get past the structure, when you get past the teachings, when you get past all that, it really is just the mastery of being yourself in the present moment. And that's why it's so dangerous to chase these practices as a carrot. You could make anything into that practice. I happen to have this stretching, quote unquote, routine. And that just entails me lying on the floor from time to time, listening to whatever the fuck my body wants to do with an intense sense of presence. And so I just stretch. There is no rhyme and reason to this stretching. If anybody was to watch it, it would be mystifying to them, I'm sure. But the point is that I'm incredibly present. And while I'm doing that, I'm processing emotions and memories and thoughts and doubts. And it's the same thing of just keep going through the motion, because it's the practice of being present that allows you to have that balance of effort and ease. So I want to say this quickly, because over the time period that we've known you in the groups and whatnot, you felt more comfortable expressing a lot of your thoughts and a lot of the things that you've been kind of processing in your own life. Now, the groups that we run are obviously so that way you have a place to process these things with people who are kind of going through the same stuff, or at least processing similar questions and assumptions and whatnot. How has this progress that you've made in your own life to finding your own stride and whatnot, how has that rippled throughout the rest of your life? How has that affected your relationship and where you work and what you're doing in your life? I know that it's changed how you've tackled challenges such as TikTok and whatnot. Jumping into the retreat was another thing, for example, but I know you also recently moved. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, this last year, really, I've gone through a lot of changes, let go of things that I've held on to for a really long time, because I just realized I was holding on to them, and it was taking energy to hold on to them. And I realized I could just relax through them and they would change. Like, so yeah, a lot of stuff happened. A lot of people have left my life, actually, but that's kind of been, I mean, at first I had the habitual thought that I was something I was doing wrong, but I think in reality it's just I stopped needing to be anything for anyone else. I stopped trying to match people's expectation of me when they're expecting too much of me. Like, I just really have started treating my relationships like I'm responsible for me and you're responsible for you. And some people just really don't like that. And yeah, so people have fallen out of my life. But also, I am the most okay with, yeah, I am the most okay with being alone and being myself that I've ever been, because I realize I really am always alone. Like, my perception is all that I know. The people that I'm interacting with, I form a concept of them based on my own self concept. So anything that I'm feeling or any needs that I have that I project onto other people are really just needs that I need to inquire within myself. So I've been doing a lot of that. And for most of the year, like, I was changing a lot internally and not a lot was shifting externally. But I found that the more that I really stepped into actually not giving a fuck, like just taking myself less seriously and knowing that I never know what the best case outcome is, I don't know where anything is going to lead. I've just been stepping into things that scare me a little bit more. So yeah, that's why I came to the retreat. That's why I was like, fucking, I'm going to move out. Like, yeah, it's a little bit more uncertain. Yeah, I might have to, change the way I spend my time and my money to make that work. But if I'm not holding on to an idea of myself and what I can and can't do, then I know that I'll be able to meet any challenge that comes up. And yeah, so that's why I've also followed my enthusiasm towards DU and really investing more of my time and my attention into this, joining the sales team, just because I really think that this mentality has the potential to help so many people, but not because we're trying to help them. And, the yoga teacher training is something as well. Like, I know that's going to be challenging and interesting, and it's going to bring up a lot of stuff that I have to work through. And, I have limiting beliefs that I won't be a good teacher, that I won't be able to speak to a group of students in a coherent and meaningful way. And I'm just not buying that anymore. Like, I'm like, okay, brain, whatever you say, I'm going to go try anyway. And what I found is that every single time it's gone nothing like I was expecting. Like, your thoughts that you can't do something are just keeping you in the same place. And it's not that they might not be true, it's that they aren't true. Like, all that your thoughts are based on is the past, and the future is not the past. I mean, future and past, it's only ever right now. Right now, the things that I thought in the past that were true, the things that were happening, aren't necessarily going to happen in the future unless I cling on to the idea that they will and sort of create that in my reality. It's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I think something is going to go a certain way, very likely it will. And so just letting go of that and being like, fuck it, I don't know, let's go see. It's really starting to snowball, and like things are changing and I'm not even really trying. It's like I've recognized, like, this is kind of going back to what you were saying, Ray, like marrying the effort and ease. You can, like, by realizing what you can't control and letting go of the certainty of that and relaxing, you realize what influence you can have. And yeah, so just following that has caused things to unfold in a really seamless and natural way. And, I'm not coming up with any ideas of where that's going to get me. I'm not trying to get anywhere. I'm completely satisfied and happy with myself and where I'm at. And like, I don't have a lot, but like, let's just fuck around and find out and see what I can do with this. And so that's just been an exciting thing to explore. And I'm just excited for every day of my life being able to calm myself on my bluff and just see what happens.
Fuck yeah, Jackie. Yeah, like there's just more space when you start living for you and not for something else about some other perception that may happen. When you start living for you, it's like you just have more space for things. And so it's becomes its own reward, that living for yourself here and now. It's like, what the fuck could possibly be better than this? Like, there isn't something above, some medal, some validation, some prize, some thing from anyone else. Because like at the end of the day, like, who are you living for with any perception of another person? Like, you're not really truly living for yourself as long as that's there. And so it does make sense then, as you start to relax into that change and that willingness to just be yourself. Like, our environments really are reflective of ourselves, like to a really deep degree. Like, even, and I wonder, even if, like, with the rigidity of reality, with society, like, is that not just reflective of my own rigidity to a degree? Like, so much of our environment is reflective of us, and there's like how we see ourselves and how we see society, but like how people act. Because if you're more free in yourself, those who are starting to feel a little bit more free in themselves, it'll be like a pull. If you're feeling free, not to like fucking measure things at all, but like feeling free like this, and someone's feeling free like this, like there's a draw to that, just not even through acting in a way, but just through feeling free in yourself, not needing something from any other situation, not even any other person, but not needing anything from another situation that could add to you an upcoming thing that could have any impact on this. Like, not living for anything outside of where you're at has a gravity to it, because so much of what we've done is living for someone else, for something other than ourselves right now. And so as those shifts happen, to your point about people in your life dropping off, it's like, I see that as new space for other things to enter. There is potentially a limited capacity of things in our environment, and so for new things to come in, and there has to be things that drop off. And oftentimes those things, they got to drop off first. So it's not like there's things waiting at the door and like, let us in. And you have to kick people out necessarily. Although I guess that could happen sometimes. But anyway, you gotta make the space for new things. And as you change, it's inevitable that your environment's going to change, because it is very much so reflective of you.
Well, it's so interesting because there are so many things happening all the time. One of the biggest things that we get tripped up about in our lives is that we think we know how things happen. Like, we think the idea of my day is how my day is going to go. That I couldn't possibly run into somebody who might offer me a chance of a lifetime. I couldn't possibly just see an opportunity that could change the entire course of my life. I couldn't possibly. Those things don't exist, right? But once you start letting go of how, all of a sudden, as you were saying, Jackie, change almost becomes easy. Like, you're going through your moment to moment experience, and because you're not thinking this is the only thing that could be happening, a bunch of things are happening. You meet people with life experiences that you could have never, ever anticipated meeting. You run into situations all the time that you couldn't have planned. If somebody's like, what's going to happen today? There's no way you could have come up with what just happened at all. And it goes down to everything from that crazy person that was on the bus this morning to what your boss said at work. These are things that happen because we have no idea what the fuck is going to happen. But isn't it funny that despite all that, we're just like, nope, my day tomorrow is going to be a lot like it was today, because every experience we're having, we project on this timeline. Like, and this is the dangerous part, is like, I feel shitty right now. I don't like how I feel right now. I'm always going to feel this way. And that's exactly what we do. And it's unfortunate, but it's just so we can settle on that idea that we know what the fuck is happening. It's so backwards that we don't even understand that that is the thing. Like, we would rather be certainly miserable than just uncertain. Because when you're uncertain, there's a whole spectrum of things that you could feel about that. A whole spectrum. You could be paying attention. You could be afraid of it. You could embrace it. You could be excited. You could be screaming and yelling down the street naked as you just laugh your ass off. Like, there's anything you can do with uncertainty, but you have to let go. You have to let go to be there, but that's where potential is. That's where all of a sudden all of your fictitious hows don't make a fucking difference at all, because you're willing to be uncertain. And I don't know about you, but at 44 years old, I have to say that my path has wound and went in so many different directions that I couldn't even possibly, like, if somebody had said to me 20 years ago, where do you think you're going to be in 20 years? It would not have been this. It would not have been this at all, at all. Even say 18 years ago when I met Melissa, I wouldn't have known at this point that we would have still been together for that period of time, or that it would end in a way that is both amicable and beneficial for both of us. I couldn't have imagined that I would be in a state of mind that could go through the ending of a relationship and not look at it as a bad thing. None of this is something that I could have predicted, but we try so very hard to do so. And why do we try? Because we're afraid. That's the only reason, is because we're afraid. And of course you're afraid. Of course you're afraid. Why wouldn't you be afraid? There's a fuck ton that could happen, but there's only so much you can do about it. And that just happens to be everything that you are right now. So you could be afraid, but it's not going to make you any more than you are. You can only use what you have.
Exactly. Like, societally, like, we have such a view of uncertainty that skews towards the negative, when in reality, uncertainty is just neutral. Like, just as many quote unquote good things come out of uncertainty as quote unquote bad things. And also, like, when we're afraid of certain events happening in our lives, it's just like we're viewing that as such an isolated situation, when in reality, like, no event is separate. Like, the worst day of my life had to happen for me to get here, and like, a lot of times the struggles that you go with, your shit becomes your superpower, because once you stop letting it control you, then you can really empathize with people who are in that situation in a way that other people can't. And so that becomes your strength, and you can use it to create so many more beautiful things in your life. But you don't have to attach to an idea of how that's going to go. And everything is out of our control. Fucking everything. We've never had control. Like, once I realized that, it really just didn't make sense to be stressed all the time anymore, because like, I've never known, and I've made it this far, right? Like, it's just that faith in yourself. Like I have faith in myself that I know no matter what happens, first of all, I'll be there to deal with it. And I know that I can look at it, even if I'm looking at it and screaming and crying and rolling on the floor. Like, I can look at it, and as long as I'm still breathing, I'm still alive, I'll find my way through it, no matter what happens. And so, like, it doesn't make sense also to hyperfixate on these potential scenarios that could happen down the line, good or bad, because it creates fear or lack or insecurity in the moment, and it's taking away from the only thing that I really have, the only thing that I have influence over, the only thing that I ever get to experience, which is myself here now. So with that in mind, I'm just really just trying to focus on my day-to-day life without having a set goal of how that's going to go. Like, I'm just following what draws me in, what makes me feel enthusiastic, and it's working out so far. I don't know where it's going, but it's like I'm surrendering to the flow more, and it's like things are already happening and I don't know how. Like, I don't know how my heart's pumping. I don't know how I grow my hair, but I'm doing it. And it's the same for the way we behave and act too. Like, I don't know why I do the things I do, but I'm doing them. And so let's just see where that goes.
That's interesting because I know recently on one of your TikToks, you were talking about epiphenomenalism and the idea that things are happening and then we justify them with thought after the fact. But what you're saying is very much that everything is acting intelligently. Like when we talk about the flow, we really are just talking about intelligence at play. Like your heart is beating, your body is changing, your DNA is doing its thing, but on the same token, nature is doing its thing. Everything is just intelligently in motion. And we don't look at it that way because we need to feel like we're in control. And so we get so lost in the thoughts justifying, no, I'm a separate person. I'm my own person. I'm separate from all this. I'm not attached to it. It doesn't tell me what to do. And that's all we're doing is just telling ourselves that we're not connected to all this, despite the fact that we have no choice. Just so we can feel a little bit more in control, a little bit more like we're not being told what to do. We're really fixated on that free will thing, right? Not recognizing that we're actually getting in the way of universal intelligence and will, which is still our will. So all of a sudden it's like, if I don't feel in control, it's not me. Of course it's you. How could it not be you? You're the only thing that's happening to you. It's so very interesting. We're talking about the flow, but it really is just surrendering to the fact that existence is intelligence in action. And we are very much a part of that. Isn't it funny how we can just get in the way and think about it after the fact?
Yeah, and like unless I'm thinking about myself, I can't take ownership for the things that I'm doing and feel that little bit of control. So I have to keep thinking about myself in order to think that this thing is something that I did, but then fear other things that I do. But if you're not thinking about yourself so much, it's a lot harder to take ownership for anything. And there's a state of freedom, but I think even in that, there's like a resistance to that uncertainty because it's like, oh, well, if I just let go, then anything could happen. Then I could say anything or think anything or do anything. And so I don't even let myself get to that point out of fear of not knowing how it's going to play out, as if it would be better to think that I know how it's going to play out because I still don't know how it's going to play out. And so letting go isn't any less uncertain of how things are going to play out. It's just that there's this illusory veil placed on top when I'm not fully willing to let go that causes me to not act as in flow with things, but that willingness to just drop a measurement of how you're doing in the moment is almost like very jarring because it's so different because you're not maintaining that perception. And then it's tougher to take that ownership. So when something good happens, it's like, I want to take ownership for that. But then immediately the idea comes back in. Immediately you're thinking about yourself again. And so whatever plays out, if you want to take ownership, whether it's a perceived good, bad, positive, negative, it's like it's still a trap sort of in getting you to think about yourself. But there's a difference when you're not needing to take so much ownership because you're whole in yourself. Like, I don't need to take ownership because I'm good right now. It's the perceived lack that makes me want to take ownership for things, and therefore think about myself and constantly think about myself, because I can judge myself about fucking anything. I could measure myself relative to some assumption about something else for literally anything I do. And if that is the case, then I'm going to constantly be thinking about myself because I feel like I need to have ownership or something. And it's interesting how that's kind of been reflected in society, like physically, that ownership, just taking fucking ownership for things that happen, but also physical things. The more I own, the more I am.
That's a really interesting point, Andrew. Yeah. And like it makes sense why we want control. It makes sense why we want security and to think we know what's going on. Like just evolutionarily. We are fucking just monkeys, like monkeys walking around thinking we know what's up. Like that really hit me last night and I had a good laugh because I was like, I don't know, I'm just a monkey. What the fuck? I think I know what's going on. Like just yeah. Anyway, it makes sense why we want to cling to that. And I have empathy for the part of myself that wants to feel safe. But like I think at this point in our society, it really has just gotten out of control because that evolutionary drive to protect yourself and have safety and security has extended to our identity, our conceptual idea of ourself. And so we feel like we have to know who we are, we have to know our beliefs, we have to abide by the type of person we are in order to just continue to confirm our beliefs about the world and about ourselves that make us feel comfortable. But in my experience, that really has only ever gotten in my way because the more you're clinging on to an idea of how things should go, the less sensitive you are to the moment, the more attention you are wasting. And things can blindside you in that mentality. And they often do, and they have a lot more drastic of an impact. Like, for example, in points in my life, like, let's just say, for example, in terms of relationships, like I've had an idea of how a relationship will turn out or I decided that this person is the right person for me and that we're going to be together forever. And then when the reality of uncertainty comes up and we break up, I'm devastated and heartbroken. And I made this whole narrative in my head that I now have to detach from. And that makes that whole process so much harder than if you were to just recognize that straight up, yeah, everything is uncertain. I don't know how things are going to go. The only thing I have influence over, not even control, is right now. And I found also that when things come up that are more challenging, the less that I'm settling on an idea about what it means about my future, about what it means about me right now, about what it means about my value or my ability to handle it, I'm just able to go through it so much easier. It's like experiences just pass through my awareness and they have whatever effect that they have. I process them, but I don't have to hold on to them. And I don't have to say, this is me now, and think that means something about the rest of my life because straight up it doesn't. I don't know who I am. And Andrew, you've been saying this recently, like my perception of me, nobody else has that perception of me. Nobody else has my perception of the world. So you need to be able to recognize that your thought isn't the truth in order to be able to see that. But once you do, like you can't ignore it. It just doesn't make sense to anymore.
It's so funny how we take an ability of ours and use it to define ourselves as better than the rest of reality. Like it's so interesting to me thinking about exactly what we're talking about and then looking at animals and how they experience reality. They experience reality in a flow where they're not thinking about themselves to the same degree. So much so that many animals, you show them a mirror and they can't recognize themselves. But then you start looking at other primates that have the ability to do that. They can recognize themselves in the mirror. They just haven't continued on with that sense of self-recognition. They just maintained their balance with nature by just living in the jungle. Whereas humans had that same ability to identify and then ran with it. Right. And although we could make tools and although we could start to control our environment and we could do all of that, we started walking farther and farther and farther into conceptualism. And we started walking farther and farther away from the flow where we were sensitive to our environment, where we were living in alignment, because the more we could control, the less in alignment we had to live. And now we've gone so far out of alignment with nature that we actually have to live separate from it. And we're terrified of it, to the point where almost all horror movies exist in the forest.
So it really is just the mentality. Like all of everything that's going on right now is a product of like, is it a product of like initially being able to recognize myself in a mirror and think that was me, and then like progress? And obviously there's no guarantees, it's just speculation, but this sort of continued desire to be safer and safer until now we're all living in, very separate, despite being close. Like I'm in New York right now, but very much living non-cohesive lives. Everyone's so separate. And so is everything, like even the feelings that we feel, products of a given existing mentality, and the variations of those things of a continued investment in an illusion.
It's interesting because when you think about the experience of it, we're talking about existence itself being intelligent. And so when you see different species and you see different types of ecosystems and you see, different aspects of nature working together perfectly and in unison, you're seeing intelligence at play. And although all of those animals and all of those plants and whatnot experience themselves as separate, they are still aspects of that one intelligence working together, perceived separately. And then all of a sudden, out of all that intelligence, one of those beings comes up for air and goes, "Oh, I'm me. I'm totally separate." And all of a sudden, we don't want to lose that sense, do we? Because it feels like for the first time, we're able to focus on something. It's like coming out of a fog. It's almost like growing up through our teenage years where we're just kind of going through the paces, reacting to everything, getting pushed and pulled without realizing it. And all of a sudden we're like, holy shit, I can actually think for myself. But that's what it is to become a human being, right? That's what it is to be born into this body with this capability, is to be able to come to a point of recognition amidst all of this incredible intelligence. And then we get so caught up in this single point of awareness and how awesome it is to be it, that we become afraid to lose it, not recognizing that we could never go anywhere except back to the intelligence that we've been the entire time. This is why Buddha was saying, rare it is to be human, rarer still to appreciate it, or something along those lines, or to be aware of it. And that's what it is, because human beings are incredible, but to all of a sudden come to recognition of what a human being has the capacity to be aware of, which is awareness itself. It's a gift.
Yeah, it's sick. I'm just in awe of everything now. Like, and yeah, Andrew, what you were saying, I do think it is just this mentality of being separate. It was the root of everything, but all of us have experienced the process of building that layers upon layers upon layers of concept and idea about what we are. And obviously that has taken us further and further away. And you can see in the way our society is running and how it's like we so clearly have this assumption that we're separate, that we're not, in this symbiotic relationship with the rest of the world. But we still are. Like, just because we have gotten carried away doesn't mean we're not still nature unfolding as it was already going to. Like, we're here, right? So, we're still nature. And, in animal populations, I learned this in ecology class, that like you eventually will reach a certain point where the population has to be checked. Things balance themselves naturally. And yeah, so I think we have gotten a little carried away, but that doesn't mean that can't be reintegrated. And I think this conversation happening right now is evidence that we are. I think all of us collectively are coming to this realization that our conceptual understandings of the world aren't the full picture. You can see it even in mainstream pop culture. I brought up the Barbie movie and all that, which really was questioning gender roles and the concepts around gender. And really, I think the theme of that movie was just recognizing what we are underneath the labels, and that we're all the same underneath, and we all really have fundamentally the same desire to just want to feel okay and want to feel like we can be ourselves. And nobody wants to be stressed out and caught up in their ego all the time. And that's why there is a gravity, like you were saying, Andrew, to somebody who's just being themselves, who is relaxed. And it's shocking to me, like how quickly this conversation has grown and how much the cultural narrative has shifted in even just a short time. But I think it really does show that people want this. Like everyone wants to be okay within themselves. And the more that we all begin to prioritize just our experience and relax a little bit more, it's like one cell in our body relaxes the whole. And that's what's happening. Like as we relax, the people around us relax and things begin to flow a little bit more seamlessly with less bullshit in the way. And that doesn't mean we need to come up with an idea of where that's going to go. We can't control how that unfolds at all. And we shouldn't think that we even know what the best scenario or outcome would be, but we're going to see how it goes. And the only thing that really matters to me is that my experience has changed and it feels incredibly light now. And that's not to say I don't still get caught up in shit all the time. I do, always. But it's just that realization that, oh, I don't know. And then you can just drop your shoulders a little bit and focus back on what you're doing.
That's great. I love that because, again, we're looking at different scales of intelligence, right? And as good old Jesus said, as above, so below, right? As with the individual, so with the collective. And in the same way that we individually get caught up in confusion and in the fog of identity and all of that, and then come back out and our clarity is informed by that time in the confusion, collectively, that is very much the same thing. We are going through a period where, just as you said, it's not like we're not nature. We are absolutely nature. Yeah, we're creating a bunch of toxicity. Yeah, we're creating a bunch of things that ultimately are self-destructive. But look at a caterpillar. Caterpillar will almost eat itself to death before it turns into a butterfly. And none of that process looks pretty. And I'm sure it feels terrifying at the time, but it serves a purpose. Squirrels, same thing. Squirrels lose like half of their nuts. That's got to be super frustrating. But without that, there would be no forests. And so we get really caught up in thinking that we know the world is doomed. And we don't recognize a lot of that is our stupid fixation on the future. Right? We will get to the future where we will have flying cars and total convenience all the time. And that was really peddled to us in like the 40s and the 50s as technology really kicked into high gear. Right. And so all of a sudden we're shooting towards this future, and all of the mentality about being present was just more or less lost and forgotten because we got caught up in convenience and control.
Yeah, immediately always reminds me of the Wall-E people, the badasses floating around on their cars, ultimate convenience or idiocracy. And it's so interesting because without the perception of division taken as truth, like it does just go with you. Things are playing out like there's no preset way things are playing out. Like they go with you going. Like things are going to go as they go. Things are going to go as you go. And so things are playing out. You don't know how they're playing out, but they are inherently reflective of you playing out because you're it. You're it. Like you're not a component of it. You're it playing out. And so that it's like that balance between pure uncertainty, but also pure influence all the time. But with the uncertainty, there's no right thing to do. There's no correct thing to do. It just comes down to you here now, because this is the influence you have, not where you're getting, not what you're becoming, not where you're going. What you are right now is the influence that has any degree of impact. So it's not about the things that you do, not about the words. It's about your state of being as you're doing all of it. And then as that shifts for you, then all of those things and the application starts to get easier. And then it is the application because there aren't so many reasons. It's not for any good reason. You just have less reasons not to do all those things. It's like the reason you weren't doing those things that you wanted to do was because you were telling yourself a story. I was telling myself a story about how it might turn out, what it might mean about me, where it might go. But then it's like those things, oftentimes, so often, those things we're afraid of are the things that we're holding ourselves back that we would actually really enjoy. And it's so interesting how that plays out in that way. Like, I'm so afraid of this thing. And it's almost like a resistance that exists in potential because a part of me knows that I'll change as it happens. Like, I'll drastically shift. Like, Jackie, it's fucking awesome that you're getting into social media stuff. And I went through the same tons of doubt. I still go through like video to video sometimes. I'm like, this is a stupid fucking thing to say or post. That shit's still in there. It doesn't go away. It's still in there. And it's like, it's irrelevant to my actions. But I went through a very long time, like fucking so like straight up every day, thought about it a bunch throughout the day for a year and a half until I did it. And it was like this resistance to me changing and then coming up with all of these different reasons why not to, putting it on other people. Oh, what are other people going to think? What are other people gonna, how am I gonna look to other people? Really, it was only my own resistance to myself changing that I was fighting the entire time. And so what if there was less resistance? What if there was less fight and the realization that you're changing in every moment? And so when these bigger swells come up, or seemingly bigger swells, like, I don't have to fight that change because it's an inevitability. And it's like I can hold it off until I'm finally like, all right, I'm going to stop holding it off so much. I'm going to stop holding myself off. Because once you stop holding yourself off, again, there's not like, oh, you should start applying it. You should start doing things. Like, no, you just don't have all the things holding you back from doing those things. And why the fuck wouldn't you explore? It's like our reasons for not exploring are the things in the way. That's what we keep coming up with. That's what I keep coming up with. But once they're not there, then it's like, yeah, just go, do. And things start making more sense as they start playing out. And you're actually there for them. And you're actually paying attention as they play out. Because there's no certainty that any other moment than the one that you're in is going to be any better or any worse ever.
See, I'm encouraged by the fact that you are both in your 20s and you're looking at the world going, I don't know, life's an adventure. Let's figure it out. And that's a pretty common thing in your 20s. That's something that a lot of people more or less start to experience. They start to question things, but then they're greeted by a world that says, shut the fuck up and get a job, because the rest of us are. And it's so encouraging to me that you are involved in and perpetuating through your enthusiasm alone a different environment for everybody else who is coming into this feeling that perhaps life isn't just this drudgery. Life isn't just this prison where you have to fall into line, find your groove, and wait to death. It really is just an opportunity for moment to moment to moment to moment where you don't have to settle on a path. You don't have to settle on a trajectory. You don't have to settle on an end result. You don't have to settle on something you want to be. You can be what you are right now and watch that shit unfold. And it's an entirely different way to exist. And when you run across people in your life and they're experiencing this, or they're just starting to question it, you are going to fan those flames because you recognize them. You recognize what it feels like to have that flame. And this is something I've tried to express to religious people, spiritual people, people who are about self-help and self-improvement. It's like, do you feel that fire of just being free, where every moment is yours? It's yours because it's you. There's no other thing other than the fact that it's you here now. Feel the freedom of that. Sure, there's risk involved, but there's risk with everything. There is something to it that philosophy does not touch. Conceptual ideas don't get there. Being clever won't do it. It's just letting go. So I am very encouraged by the fact that you two are out there doing your thing, creating ripples, just being the ripples in yourself. Because what's funny about that, it's so interesting how I'll say something like, being the ripple, and immediately the brain's like, yeah, I'm making ripples. It's like, no, you're also receiving ripples. You are, in fact, just the facilitator of ripples. That's all you are. You don't even get to own that shit. All you get to do is witness it. And if you're not giving into your opinion of those ripples, it really is a beautiful display.
that's why fucking responsibility is just so crucial. Because we just stand in our own way so much, and we're able to just pin it on everybody else and say everybody else is the issue. And that's like why people get so caught up in like thinking the world is doomed and ending, because we're all like pointing at each other saying, you're the issue, you're the issue. And then that makes it easier for us to just dissociate from what we're doing. You know, that cognitive dissonance really is a force. You have to be able to take accountability for the ways you're contributing to everything, because you are everything. You can't point at anybody else as the excuse to why you're not living your truth, why you're not, you know, why you're holding yourself back. It's you. Any of the feelings that you're feeling, you can't pin on anybody else. You have to really just take them in. And that's not in a sense that you have to judge yourself at all, because doing that is just clinging on to a certainty that you know what's best. Like you don't. And so like it's responsibility, but in the lightest sense possible, because it's like I just know that no matter what I do, it doesn't mean anything about my value. And yeah, there's just, like you were saying, Andrew, like no reason why I wouldn't just do what I'm naturally gonna do. There's so much less resistance when you just recognize that you don't fucking know, and that the most you can do is your best. And you'll be shocked at how profound that is. Like, oh my goodness. And also, something I've let go of recently is being somebody who recognizes this and like how I'm supposed to behave or act accordingly. And, you know, still like thinking about how I'm more awake than other people and all this shit. Like, I don't know that either. And I just needed to check. Like, that was like the spiritual ego thing coming up. And so many people have that. And that's why they don't have that fire of just freedom and not giving a fuck in them, because they're like trying to be something specific. And that just drives walls between you and everybody around you. And they can't really, like, first of all, you're not getting it to the extent that you think you do, if you're thinking you're all important because of it. And it completely disrupts your ability to even make an impact. And that's like what I think a lot of spiritual people are doing. And like I see that in yoga all the time, like teachers who are like very monotone, very calm, and they think there's a very specific way that you have to do yoga. You have to follow these specific sequences. You have to push yourself to, you have to be able to do crazy shit. That's robbing the people that you're teaching of the one nugget of truth that is just like, you're okay now. Like that's the value of this. That is the benefit, is just being able to relax in any given moment, knowing that you're going to be okay, and just surrendering to however that is going to play out.
Fuck yeah, well said. Oh man, it just this one just hit me as you were talking. Like, oh man, so it's almost as if you get to a point where you recognize that you're so unimportant, in fact, that you're willing to make a fool of yourself. You're willing to be ridiculous. You're willing to be absurd, not to prove anything to anyone, but just as a product of being that unimportant. And oh fuck, that's, oh man, that's yeah, I've gotten like inklings of that, but that's like, it's like shaking out a wet rag. I don't know why I'm getting that imagery, but it's like shaking yourself out to be like, yeah, this is unimportant. So if I feel any ridiculous way, if I feel embarrass myself or whatever, like it means nothing. That's how unimportant I am. And so many of the gurus, people, anyone who's trying to be something is going to have a lot of resistance to making a fool of themselves, especially because they want to be seen in a certain way, like they know stuff. But there is such a degree of importance placed upon that if you're maintaining that need to do things right or correctly, or not make a fool of yourself.
And isn't it funny, because often being the fool unapologetically and without shame is exactly the impact that you want to have on someone who judges themselves because they perceive themselves to be the fool. You couldn't get through to them otherwise. This is one of the things I like about whatever the fuck Ray is. I like to have fun, but I can sit down and wax philosophical all fucking day. You know, I can have a conversation. I can be reasonable. I can be intelligent. I can be articulate. I can do that whole thing. And yet at the same token, I will walk around in a hat that says daddy because I think it's funny. And it's just important to do that. Live for you. But people will operate on assumptions. And being willing to just be out there and have fun for your own sake gives people opportunities. You may not recognize it, but I mean, even that the hat, daddy, for example, I understand for the most part, people are like, that's kind of funny. But occasionally you'll get somebody who says, that's not funny at all. And they'll have reasons that that's not funny. It's a perfect opportunity to talk about them. It's a perfect opportunity to remind that person that your perception of the thing isn't necessarily the only perception of the thing. And that to expect the world to cater to your individual perception of the thing will never be a reasonable request. And so there's an opportunity to have a discussion simply because you're having fun. And those who can't have fun will come and tell you why.
That's such a powerful realization too. It's like, I'm not taking myself seriously, and if you're taking me seriously, like, that's on you, dude. Like, any expectation that you're feeling, any type of way you're feeling, that's yours to deal with. I don't have to care. Like, I'm sorry, I don't have to care. And this kind of comes back to like what I was talking about on the Colin episode of just like using other people's expectations of you as sort of like an opportunity, because people are going to expect shit of you. And that's why I can't wait to be a yoga teacher, because I'm sure people are going to come in there with all types of expectations, and I'm not going to put on any sort of front. I'm going to be how I am now. Like, I mean, yeah, like I'm not, because I'm not trying to put on a front that you have to be any sort of way to be free. You don't have to be calm to be free. You don't have to be articulate. You don't have to be serious. You don't have to be high-minded. You don't have to be ascetic. You could just be yourself. There's no right way to be at all. And that shit is just contagious. Like, it's funny when you don't give a fuck, because like you can't be touched. Like, why do I care if you don't like me? Why do I care if you're judging me if I don't judge myself? And like that can be really fucking frustrating to people that they want to make you embarrassed, because they're trying to reinforce the way they feel about the world, and that it's like any sort of measure of truth. But you can just be there as a mirror, just be like, plain and simple, it's not true. And maybe you should look at that within yourself. And that can be the best catalyst for growth, you know? Sometimes you got to piss people off. But if you're not worried about people being pissed at you, it becomes easy. And like, it's not even that I'm not giving a fuck to have the most impact on people. Like, I'm not giving a fuck for my own experience, because it feels good for me to just, like go about my day, like be myself, have fun, crack jokes, and not take any of it seriously. It's for me. And the more that we prioritize our own experience, that bleeds out. Like, it really does. And it's so fucking paradoxical and contradictory and half-assed backwards. Like, you think that the way to have an impact on somebody is to fit yourself into this mold that they feel like they need to aspire to. And that's just not. That, if anything, just alienates people and pushes them further away. So yeah, I'm just excited. I'm really stoked to be able to cultivate a space. I mean, like you guys have done here on the podcast, but with people in my life. And this sort of has become a bigger part of my day-to-day relationships as well, is just like cultivating a space where I'm not expecting anything of you. You're free to be as you are, and I'm doing the same. And just me doing that has such a profound impact on the people that I interact with. And like, it's not that I'm not trying to do it. It's effortless.
As long as you're participating. I'm going to pass it to Andrew here quickly, but I just wanted to say that I think it's really funny, because we're like, it's great to not give a fuck, because all I've been giving a fuck about is nonsense and assumption. That's all I've been giving a fuck about, is this idea that I can come up with some sense of control. If I think about this enough, if I give a fuck about my thoughts, eventually something will pay off. And finally, you're just like, nope, losing game, never works, not at all. And so the end result, and I find it funny because even this gets twisted in people's mind, is to find your Buddha nature. And I've always found it really funny, because you would just call that your Jackie nature. Andrew would just call it his Andrew nature. It's what you are when you're not trying to be anything. It's not trying to be the Buddha. It's not trying to be a picture of enlightenment. The whole reason we look at Buddha as enlightened at all is because he wasn't trying to be anything.
Yeah, and we'll even have an idea or try and figure out an idea of what that means to be it, because we haven't spent time exploring it or being it. And there's a part of me that, I fucking, Jackie, to your point, really enjoying breaking down, especially on social media, ideas people have of me to any degree. Like, even like, I'm getting way more comfortable with just sharing like anything, like anything at all. And so it's fun because I'm just doing it for me, and that's all that it's got to be. And so when I put up a couple jokes that I was working through on a car ride, and like some of them were like pretty fucked up, like, not gonna lie. And I thought that too. I was like, oh, where did that one come from? That's pretty dark. And I was like, you know what'll shake some things up, because that is like, I enjoyed fucking dark fucked up humor. Like, it's funny. If you can't laugh at that, no judgment whatsoever. But so I posted it, and it was fun. I lost a bunch of followers, and I get more and more excited the more that happens, as I'm willing to share myself. And so the beauty in recognizing that your expectations of anyone else aren't them, the and that's where freedom lies, is in that uncertainty. The best thing you could ever do is shake up any perceptions you have of yourself, not for any reason, not for anything, but just as a product of you feeling more free in yourself. And there's less hesitation, there's less reasons not to express yourself fully or wholeheartedly. And there's been such a draw towards doing the right thing or the correct thing, or this desire for there to be a right or a correct thing to do. So even in the spectrum of like, I don't know why these words are coming up, but naughty to nice, or like good to bad, constructive to destructive, like, it's all kind of bullshit. So like, if you obviously have sensitivity, sure, but beyond that, there's not like, especially in terms of saying stuff, it's like, you can have a sensitivity to understand a potential reaction, but at the same time, you don't necessarily know what that response is going to be ever. And so you're more willing to just express that because there is less tightness and tension blocking those things off. It's like the knots that we were talking about on the rope, like the things that we are so sure of or certain of, our ideas or whatever are, and all of the tension is the knots that we hold on to. So as those start to unravel, it's like we don't have as much hesitation, like we're more fluid with things. And without the check-in, like, oh, how am I doing? How is this going? What do people think of me? It just continues to flow, and your sensitivity is there, but there's not this like, oh, got to make sure I say something in this way or that way, or I get do this thing for this person. It's like, it comes as a natural product of just doing it for you. Like, I've spent so little time exploring that, like the depth of that and what's even there. And I don't know, I guess maybe I've avoided it because it is so uncertain. And I'm not sure what I would be if I just fucking let go, despite it, not giving me any degree of certainty whatsoever.
Might as well find out. This has been a fun conversation. We're going to wrap up here very shortly, but Jackie, I wanted to say thank you again, first of all, for being here on the show. We're definitely going to have you back in the near future, especially to hear about how your yoga training is going and your practice, and of course, how being a teacher is giving you an opportunity to learn even more things about yourself and the role that you have in other people's lives, because that is definitely the case. When you are teaching something, you can get caught up in thinking of yourself as a teacher, or you can come back down to recognizing that you will always be a student, even though you've been a student for even longer. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about that. But before we part ways, because you have been part of the community for so long, because we actually have met you, and you are one of our younger listeners at the end of the day, and you've been here for quite some time, if you could offer any piece of advice to anyone who is just getting into this conversation, just getting into the podcast as a whole, into questioning themselves, into feeling a little bit more uncertain, into jumping in, somebody who is, say, where you were, say, 2 years ago on your path, what would you say to them?
Wow. I would probably just say, just keep going. Don't hang on to any idea of how these realizations should affect your life or how you should act. And even if you do get caught up in those expectations, don't judge yourself because you think you shouldn't be. Like, it's all just processing, it's all unfolding the way it's supposed to because that's what's happening. And you'll find that you don't really even have to try for these realizations to unfold. It's like once that shift happens, you don't have to try to be anything other than you're not. You just have to allow yourself to express whatever you're expressing in that moment. And I would say, kind of tying into what Andrew was talking about, like, no matter what you're thinking about what you did and the consequences or what you said and how people are thinking about you, it's never true. And it's all just gaining context. Like, don't stop yourself from doing or saying something because you're worried about a potential consequence. So what if that consequence happens? Like, it's just another experience that you can then draw from in the future. It's just context to inform your appreciation and your relationship to the present. So just keep it light. Don't put expectation on yourself and laugh at yourself. Try to enjoy yourself. And, you don't have to have an intelligent point. Sometimes the best thing that you can do for the conversation is to make a dick joke in the chat, like, straight up. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. I'm so happy that I'm here with you guys, and I'm happy that I pushed myself out of my comfort zone yet again and went on the podcast because, oh my god, last night I was telling myself, the last couple days I've been like, oh, but what if I run out of things to say? Yeah, I just proved to myself yet again that shit isn't true. Anything that I'm thinking straight up isn't. The only thing that's real is what I am, what I'm expressing right now. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here. We'll definitely come back soon.
Fuck yeah. And you fucking killed it. So fuck yeah for stepping into uncomfortable shit. But it is it's a pleasure. It's a it is a pleasure to know you, Jackie. I had a blast hanging out with you at the Vancouver or my brain's like, all right, we're almost done. Work for a couple more minutes. It was a pleasure getting to know you at the Vermont retreat. I had a blast. It is so exciting to see all of the changes play out in your life and to see the freedom. And I'm feeling very similarly. It's just fun to see people doing it, saying fuck those thoughts, fuck that noise, fuck all of that shit going on in my head, trying to be sure of something that it can never be sure of. And I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to find out and I'm going to prove my own idea of myself incorrect. So it has been a blast. And I look forward to our next chat, Jackie.
And on a final note, of course, we are leading up to the Netherlands retreat. So anybody who hasn't purchased a ticket to that event, definitely consider doing so. It's coming up on November 11th. The third floor is already sold out. The second floor is filling up fast. This is going to be an incredible event. If you've been to any of the mini retreats, definitely consider coming to this 9-day retreat. This is the full enchilada, as it were. And if you haven't been to a mini retreat, then fucking leap. Get in there. This is going to be an experience you're never going to forget. I can only say that because it's going to be an experience I'm never going to forget. So I'm going to be fully involved, as will Andrew, as will everybody who is a part of the community. This is going to be intense. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.